From the School of Life Foundation, this is another episode of What You Given, a broadcast based on the invitation, find what brings you joy and match it to the needs of the world. This becomes your gift. Everyone has something inside of themselves to give, and I want to know, what are you giving? In my interviews, we meet people from all walks of life. I am Jack Rolfe, and on the show today, I have John Porter. John, hello there. How are you doing today?
Doing wonderful. Excited to join you.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate that. I know you're a busy individual, but I know that you're all about doing good things too. And in fact, just jumping into things here, if somebody were to ask me, what three words do you think of when somebody says John Porter? And so here's my three words. It's family, service, and business. So am I pretty close with that?
Yeah, you're pretty close with that. I'd probably add a fourth one, and that's God. But I think that you are, that's a pretty good description of me.
That's wonderful. And I appreciate you adding God in there. And I oftentimes, when I think of service, I think of God.
Sure.
I believe that when we're serving others, we're serving Him ultimately. And so I appreciate that about you. So just for our listeners to get to know who John Porter is a little bit more, let's start out with the family topic. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Sure. My wife and I both come from strong family backgrounds, rural backgrounds. We have 4 children of our own. We have a fifth that we added. She came to stay with us originally from Bolivia and came to us from Spain as an exchange student, and we just kind of never gave her up. So we have 5 kids. They are 4 of them are married. I have one who we're hoping for. So he's working at it. And then we have 10 grandkids, but this is going to be a banner year for us. We've got three more coming this year. So it's a great year for the Porters.
Wow, that is wonderful. Grandchildren are just about the greatest thing in the world.
They are the greatest thing in the world.
And so you're 10 right now. What age range is that?
My oldest just turned 8, and so from newborns to 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is quite a gathering when they all get together. A little bit of craziness.
It is great fun, and everybody's busy, and lots of food and little sleep. So we love it when we're all together.
Well, that sounds awesome. I can relate to that when we have our children and grandchildren together, and it is the best of times. And I know that you love your family, and I think I'm probably pretty safe to say that they love you as well. And what a wonderful thing that is, love. We sure could use a lot more love in the world right now, couldn't we?
Boy, in every sector, in every sector I know of, we would all we could all be blessed with a different feeling of goodwill toward the people we're around.
Yes, I agree. And that's one of the things we strive to accomplish with this show, What You Given. And, speaking of that, let me slide into my second word that I had, service, and which you beautifully tied God to that as well. You had the opportunity, you and your wife, to serve as a mission president for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Cincinnati, Ohio. Can you tell us a little bit about that, kind of, how you received that assignment, maybe a little bit, and then your time as a mission president, and now your time as a post mission president?
Oh, sure, I'd love to walk you through that. So, in our religious denomination, we are run by a lay clergy, and so nobody that would generally go through the traditional seminary tracks that you might find in other Christian religions. And so um, people are called from all kinds of backgrounds to go out into the world to bless the lives of others. Well, many of you would have seen our 18 to 25-year-old young men and young women who are out in the world. They're doing everything from preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, carrying the admonition of the Savior, to carry the gospel to all nations, kindreds, tongues, and people, to serving in a variety of from individual families to helping in homeless shelters and in food banks and all kinds of things. In fact, there's a program that the church has out that you can get an app called Just Serve. And on there is a list of, have nothing to do with our church per se, but any organization can say, we have need of help. And if you're looking for a way to help, you can jump in and match yourself to an interest and go and help. Our young men and women do that all over the world. And in this case, my wife and I were asked to take 3 years of a sabbatical away from work and our life. We moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, and we had just over 500 young men and young women that we watched over. They were assigned to work in 60 different congregational units, and maybe and they were all brilliant. They're extraordinary young men and women, and a breath of fresh air when you look at all the problems that our youth are facing in the world. To have them come out for 18 months or 2 years and focus solely on blessing the lives of other people. It was a remarkable experience for me and for them. And this is a proud moment for you, but your daughter, we had the opportunity. She was one of the first new missionaries we had. We had her for her full 18 months. She had a tremendous impact everywhere she went. She's a ray of light, and really was a blessing in the lives of many people. And so her and her husband Ben also was with us, and we loved every minute of it. It was wide open as fast as you go from 6 a.m. to midnight, but it was an extraordinary time. We loved every minute of it. And the post, we went back to the regular of life, the regular aspects of life, back to business and such. And we're very blessed. We're very happy. But there's just nothing like being with those young men and young women and watching them grow as disciples of Christ and as servants of men and women and families. And it was just a remarkable experience. So thank you for asking about that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. As you were speaking, just a flood of things come to my mind. First of all, thanks for the little shout out for our daughter Kayla and her husband now Ben. They are just wonderful young people doing wonderful things. In fact, that's how I've got connected to you, is through that mutual connection there. And but that's the same for all of those young people that serve those missions, and they just go on to do great things in the world and great things in life. And gosh, 3 years, it can go by quickly, but that's a good chunk of your time to set aside, step away from your business, set aside to go out and serve others, serve God. Thank you for that service. And I know that the young people that served with you, these 500 plus missionaries, were influenced from the experience and influenced from you and your wife. But share with us just a little bit, how did it change your life?
Oh, in every good way. So a mission experience for us took everything that we valued and put an explanation point behind it. So we've always been people of service, always loved to be engaged with our fellow men, with our church congregations, with the needs of the local community and international community. We've done a lot of humanitarian work, for instance. And because we didn't have to get engaged in our business affairs, I own a couple businesses, and we had a very bright young management team that ran it, and they frankly did a beautiful job without us, and we really felt like the Lord blessed us, and it let us just focus solely on blessing the lives of others. And so it took all of those things that we valued and gave us such a tremendous perspective of what really matters in life, and helped us gain a closer relationship with the Lord, closer relationship with my wife and I, closer relationship with our children, but an extraordinary relationship with these 500 young men and young women. We didn't have them all at once, of course. At the highest point, we had 250 of them, but we're with them all the time. And we just came to love each one. And they come from such very, very different backgrounds and have very different skills and talents. And yet the Lord still has a way to find a way to utilize all those talents and all those skills and bless people in a different way. And it was remarkable. We came to love the people of Cincinnati and Indiana. And it was a tremendous experience. Coming home, we went back to the things that before I had loved, but I didn't love them the same. So I have a friend who calls it being caught in the thick of thin things, meaning that you go back and maybe the awards don't mean as much, and the growth of the business doesn't mean as much, and some of those personal and professional accomplishments don't mean as much because you're much more concerned about your fellow men.
That's a beautiful description of that. And as you were closing it out there, it made me think it helped you dial in truly to what priorities are in life. And that's something that we hope individuals that listen and watch this show will dial in, is just finding what their priorities are in life. And, I love the service part of it. You served those in Cincinnati and in Indiana. And you mentioned some humanitarian efforts. Now, you've done some work in some other countries. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. This will take me back, if you'll indulge me a minute. I'm going to go back to my childhood a little bit.
Yeah.
I was raised up in Meridian, Idaho, on a hobby farm. My dad was a financial planning executive, but he wanted to raise kids, and so he put us out on a farm, and we learned to work there, and it was really good for us. And we did a lot of. They took us around. We did a lot of work in the welfare farms and some of those kind of things, and those were good lessons. But just before, in our church, as I mentioned, for the young people, it's pretty common to have a young man or a young woman go out at 19 or 20. And just before my 19th birthday, I was going to Scotland for my 2-year period of time, which was an extraordinary time. But we went to and did, as a family, and we did a tour of Israel and Egypt. And it heavily influenced my life. It was just 2 weeks. We flew first to Egypt. We went into Cairo. We were excited to go and see the pyramids, but I didn't really see the pyramids. That was the first time I'd ever seen poverty, and all I really saw was the children. And for a kid from middle class family in southern Idaho, it really impacted me. And I made it wasn't a conscious thing, but it impacted me enough that I knew then that I wanted to have an impact on the lives of our brothers and sisters in the world. And so from then on, everything that I've been doing has been looking for opportunities to be able to help with that. And so after our mission at my mission in Scotland, which was an extraordinary experience to go and spend time with those remarkable people, got my education, but the goal was always to be able to start a business, and that we would fold humanitarian work into that business. And we were fairly successful, in fact, pretty successful at that. So we have sites around the world. Every site we have has local needs that they identify and support. We support orphanages, we support women's clinics, we support health organizations, we support education, technology, things like that. And each local unit gets to choose what they're going to do. And then at a larger level, a corporate level, then we have charities that we support too. And so all along the way, our business interests have always been tied to our humanitarian interests, which really came from that first experience. And so when you talk about our business, it's always going to be interwoven with our humanitarian work.
It sparked some thoughts with me, but I'm going to hold on to it for a minute. You mentioned business. Let's go into that here just a little bit. You have somewhat of an entrepreneur spirit, and maybe you could explain to those listening today kind of your path in the business world.
Yeah, sure. So when I finished a graduate degree down in Texas, and I went to work for DuPont. It was a wonderful job, wonderful people. We lived in Ponca City, Oklahoma, at a refinery. Loved the experience, but I figured out pretty quick that wasn't going to meet my needs to grow as an individual or to be able to have the impact I wanted. So through the influence of some friends who actually had served on my mission in Scotland, I ended up in the call center business, and we started, my wife and I, we started a business in 1995. One of my old missionary companions came to join us a few months after that. And we started building a call center business. Now it's a BPO. We do all kinds of business process outsourcing, including technology development and so forth. And we now have sites, several sites in the United States, Philippines, Central America, those places. From there, we sprung a software company that has been successful and has engaged a lot of people. And then we've had all kinds of other little interests. Some have worked, some haven't. But those are the main ones. We had some success domestically, but I was quite bothered that we had young men and young women in different parts of the world who were getting educations, serving missions, those kinds of experiences, and then coming home and not finding employment. And so we made the goal to start to provide employment. So we opened a site in the Philippines before we actually had any clients there, and that was an act of faith. And it has grown and grown and grown. We now have I don't know what the number is, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that work for us there. And then we went to Central America for the same reason, and that's flourished. And so it's been a real blessing to us to see their lives, not only the work they do, certainly that's been good for us, but it has been wonderful to see some of these people who are raised in homes with less than $1 a day, without electricity, running water, and now they are middle-class professionals, and in some cases, our CFO in the Philippines, his name is Rainey, was one of those, raised in the sugar fields, and now he runs tremendous operation, is tremendously skilled, works very hard at providing for his family, for his fellow Filipinos, but especially for those who do not have the same opportunities. And he leads up a lot of our humanitarian efforts there. So those kinds of things have been tremendously gratifying to us.
You know, as you're talking about all those experiences, it makes me think of other individuals that I know that they have sincerely dedicated that whatever their business is, whatever their work is, they're going to use it to benefit and help others ultimately, and you know, through service and humanitarian efforts, charity, whatever that is. And the interesting thing I see with all those individuals that I know is they become successful, and I think through that success, it allows them more opportunities to serve. And so but it really comes down to a sincerity of it. You know, I think if you start out saying, I'm going to serve, I'm going to tie serving so that my business will just get really big, and, you know, I'll have all this financial success and all this and that. That's not the sincerity of it. So there's kind of a fine line with that. And you know, also, John, as you've been talking here and describing all these experiences, starting from your childhood, moving forward, it leads us into what I'd like to share with those that listen, this process that I believe we all go through in life. And a lot of times we don't realize we're going through it. Sometimes we do figure it out, but we don't put a name on it. But it starts with, we have, I believe, starting from extremely young age and all through life, inspirational moments is what I call them. Those times when your soul speaks to you, and it speaks loudly enough, you think that you probably better listen. And you know, you talked about when your parents took your family, you know, over on that initial trip before you went on your mission, and what your soul spoke to you then really kind of set you on a course in your life. And you talked about when you graduated from school down in Texas, and you know, you started out with some different things, but then your soul spoke to you again about another direction. And then individuals you had met through your mission, again, your soul whispered to you, hey, maybe those are some people I should work with. And it just starts to build and build upon itself. And through these inspirational moments, as you go along this path, you start to recognize skills that you have, talents that you have. And I believe these talents are divine gifts that we're given, and it starts to develop in passion. And it leads into the invitation we have on this podcast to find what brings you joy and then match it to the needs of the world. And so you've kind of let in a little bit, I think, about what brings you joy. But if I asked you that question straight out, which I'm going to right now, John Porter, what brings you joy in life?
It's going to be those exact same words you started with. I love having a relationship with God. I start every morning with a devotional time, studying Scripture and focused on Christ. I do that every morning. I'm kind of a habit guy, and then I exercise, and then I go out to make a mark on the world. And so first in my life is going to be my relationship with God. The second is going to be my family. my associations there. We love being with our children and communicating with them. That's a major part of our life. We love uh, people in general, and uh, being able to meet and associate with people from all kinds of cultures and backgrounds. We love the earth and living things. Where we live on I did the same thing with my kids. We live on a hobby farm, and we have cattle and horses, and my grandsons and I are waiting anxiously for our batch of baby chicks to come in this year. And so we're going to be doing we're going to be doing chickens. So I can, these two are 5 and 3. So they'll be excellent business partners for me. And then, and I like to see things grow. So my business life I've loved seeing the business grow, watching people grow, my relationships there. Those are really the things that we love. My hobbies were always whatever my kids were doing. So whatever they were interested in, that's what I was interested in. And my hobbies when I was a kid, they all kind of went away because they didn't have time. So it's always just been around family and church and business and serving our fellow man. That's kind of been our life in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's a great life, and those are solid things to base your foundation principles on. And so you've described a little bit what you do to serve. With our tagline of matching what brings you joy to a need in the world, what would you say is the need in the world that you're really helping with?
There are so many needs in the world. It's very hard for people to grow. In my view, there's a kind of a continuum, and it's very difficult for people to grow emotionally or spiritually if their basic needs are not being met. And so in different parts of the world, we've done quite a lot of work in Central America, Africa, Asia, and moving somebody from abject poverty, where you're talking a couple of dollars a day, up to even making $8 or $10 or $12 a day is a major change in their life. They get education for the kids. In some parts of the world, they don't sell their children. They can have food. They can buy medicine. So those things are major. And so we have always been wanted to be engaged there. We have different organizations that we've been associated with. I was the chairman of the board for Choice Humanitarian for a while. They are a wonderful organization. And we've helped with others. We've built a school in Ghana and whatever. So those kind of things are really designed to put people in a position where they really can focus on spiritual and emotional needs and not just worried about what they're going to eat today. But then we have very different needs here just in our local communities. People aren't very often worried about what they're going to eat, although we do have some of that problem here. But we have lots of problems around relationships and how to help relationships work. My old business partner ended up going back and getting a master's degree in counseling, so that we could find ways to distribute solid relationship principles to people in an effective way. He's continued on that. I haven't. We separated, but those kinds of things, there's a need, and it depends on where you're at. So everybody has something they can do. For us, because I'm fairly have had some development and some skills in organizations. I've helped build organizations and helped mentor new leaders, and have enjoyed that very much. But everybody has something that they can do to help relieve suffering of somebody else.
Yeah, I want to touch upon that. I thank you for sharing that. For people listening today, there are needs wherever you live. There's needs right around the corner. There might be needs right next door, and it doesn't have to be. It's wonderful. It is, but it doesn't have to be. Changing the lives of multiple people. If you change the life of one person and make life a little bit better, you're changing the world. And so, find what is best for you, and look close by. There's a need. You have a gift that can fill it, and go out and do it. Yeah, go ahead, John.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. I was going to say, Thomas S. Monson was one of the leaders of our church, but a great man of service. And he made the statement, actually his daughter quoted him, but he made the statement, never deny a generous thought. So all those young people that I've associated with, but in my own life, I have taught this, and I've tried to live this, that if you pay attention during the day, and you talked about that, you're being guided, you'll have thoughts come into your mind of someone to go see, or someone to reach out to. And maybe it's a text message, maybe it's to go by and see somebody, maybe it's to take them something. And a lot of times we get a second thought, and that second thought talks us out of it, like, oh, they'll think that's weird, or I don't have time, or whatever. And I just learned, if I am looking for that, and for me, I pray for that, but if I'm looking for that every day, there's going to be somebody every day that I can have a positive influence on. It can be a work associate. It can be a neighbor, to your point. It could certainly be one of your own family members, somebody in your congregation. With Facebook and other social media platforms, it could be somebody in a completely different continent. But just the ability to be able to reach out and say, hey, I was just thinking about you, that does change lives, and that blesses people. And sometimes those turn from small things into great things. But we have to do the small ones first to be able to identify the great things.
Yeah, you are spot on with that. And I've had occasions where I've pondered for the day, what can I do to make a difference? And it might be, like you mentioned, a simple, well, you say simple, but it isn't always simple in the impact. Sometimes I'll text someone that comes to my mind and just say, I'm just thinking about you today, and I just want to tell you how awesome you are, and end of story. And you know what? Sometimes going just through a process like that just opens up even bigger opportunity, maybe with that individual or something else. And it just leads you again on this path that we're all on, which ultimately, I believe, if we all strive to help each other, the path becomes so much easier as we move through this journey in the school of life. And, we're always probably reaching to someone that's pulling us along. And if we can use the other arm and reach out and try to maybe pull someone along with us, and this whole human chain, we just go together, and it doesn't matter, where we're at, who we are, what our background is, and makes a difference.
That is exactly right. And I'll tell you, and I know you know this, but I have lots of friends who, and a lot of youth, a lot of young people who struggle with anxiety, struggle with depression, struggle with emotional stability. And what I have found has helped them more than anything is reaching beyond themselves to find someone else to help. And that's why it was such a joy to have 550 kids out there who are looking beyond themselves to help somebody else. And to the degree that we can do that, it has a tremendous influence on the lives of others. But it is the thing that ultimately brings you joy, because those are the things that become lasting. as you feel that sense of approval from God and your own spirit about reaching out to lift the burden of one of your fellow brothers and sisters that's in the same journey you are. So I just applaud what you do, and I applaud well, your whole life has been this way. It's why you have those Notre Dame insignia behind you, is you looking for a way to bless the lives of mankind. And I admire what you do and what you stand for.
Well, thank you for that. And, just recapping some of the things as we've gone through here today, just a reminder to people that we have these inspirational moments. That's huge. But the key is then to listen and act upon, have the courage a lot of times to act upon those moments. And that leads you to discovering what your talents are, what your gifts are, the things you've been blessed with. As you do that, then you start to develop what your passion is, which is tied to the third part in delivering. That's giving this gift that we each have, and it's different for each one of us, and deliver it to the world. And then it ties right back to joy. And so the more you deliver your gift, the more joy you have. And it's kind of a nice circle and a pattern to get in there. Thoroughly enjoy talking with you, John, and I could talk with you for hours. I think we're like-minded in a lot of different ways, and yet unique in ways too, and nice learning a little more about each other. But we at some point we need to bring things to a close for today, and so I'd like to wrap up with one question. Now, we've received, I believe, a lot of nuggets from you today, but this is your chance for your parting comment. Let's get our golden nugget from John Porter. If there's one thing you want those listening today to remember, what would that be?
It is this concept, I think, that you are working so hard to teach, and that is that everybody has something to offer to somebody else, and everybody needs something from somebody else. We are all interconnected, and the degree to which we find ways to lift and strengthen others, we can't help but be lifted and strengthened ourselves. I think that is the pattern of where Jesus says, cast your bread upon the water, or you reap what you sow. All of those things, I believe, has been established by God to be a blessing to us if we're willing to do that. And it's certainly been true in my life, but honestly, it's true in the life of anybody I know who makes that their effort. And as each of us does that, it blesses mankind, but it blesses us and all of us. That's where the old phrase, all boats in the harbor rise when the tide comes in. And this is one of those times where we can lift and strengthen, and other people lift and strengthen, and everybody is lifted and blessed because of it. And we think sometimes, I'm not able, I'm not capable, nobody wants to see or hear from me. None of that's true. We all have talents, we all have abilities, and God will help you find how to use them if you're looking for it.
That is fantastic insight, and I thank you for that. And with your golden nugget, there's one piece in there that really jumped out to me that I want to make sure people didn't miss it. And you talked about which what I talk about is we all have something to give, but you also mentioned we all have needs ourselves. And so, gosh, when we're giving, there's might be someone else trying to give to us, whether it's just to uplift us for that day or whatever. And we should never turn those things away. Sometimes we feel maybe too proud for that, or I don't know, there's a lot of different ways we have negative thoughts come, but we should always be open when others are trying to give. And that's the beautiful synergy that comes throughout that. And so I'm glad you touched upon that. And And your closing golden nugget was just wonderful. I do appreciate that. And as we bring today's episode to an end, I would just like those listening to the show today to remember that your heart feels for you, your mind reasons for you, but your soul speaks to you. Are you listening? Did you listen today? If so, what did you hear? And what did you learn? Will you now have the courage to act upon what you felt? Thank you so much for tuning in. Please follow us on your podcast app or subscribe to the YouTube channel so that each new episode is always downloaded, ready for you to listen in and share it with others. As always, we love to have you leave a review as well. If you want to send us a message or desire to be on the show, you can send an email to whatchagiven@gmail.com. A special thanks goes to our producers, Ben and Kayla Martin. Now it's time to move upward and onward and ask yourself, what you given?